Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I want to be clear about one thing. Government statistics say it's just over 300,000 people last year coming to this country. There is this new research which says that if you look at the national insurance numbers being claimed, it could be more like 600,000. Out of interest, which figure do you believe?
Well, the new figures will be published, I'm told. At the time, I always thought it was best to get all this information out into the open, but the Nino registration issue certainly gives you a clarity as to who's actually registering here, because you're not able to officially work unless you get a national insurance number.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nino is a national insurance number. And so that would give you some indication of those who had registered. Of course, there's some margin, I suppose, for people who may have registered and not stayed here, but essentially, I would suspect somewhere between those two figures, these numbers are true.
And who's going to fill those jobs if it's not immigrants from Europe?
Well, the issue is, first of all, are you trying to stop migration, whatever? And the answer is no, because we've always had migration, you'll always have migration. The question is the scale of migration and whether you control it. And why do you want to control it? Well, for two good reasons, I think. First of all, for the level of assimilation. Communities need to have time to be able to assimilate people who come in, different cultures, etc. If you don't do that and people come in higher numbers, then you create tensions, and you don't want that. No. And the second thing is, there's a balance of services that you need to recognise in certain areas where some of this work comes, that you want to be able to ensure that work is, that capability is provided.
I understand that, and I'm asking.
So there will always be immigration, but it's about controlling immigration, which is the key, which you try and do anyway with the non-EU borders, and you want to do the same with the EU.
But the point people get upset about is they look at 300,000 and they think we don't want all these people. And the point that I'm asking, because it's in a spirit of genuine confusion, because I have to cover these issues on News at 10 every single day at the moment, is that if it's between 300,000 and 600,000, surely these are people coming to do jobs that we need done. Whether we controlled our borders or not, roughly the same number of people will be coming because we want them to do the jobs. And the second point is that every time that the Office of Budget Responsibility produces an analysis of the public finances, it seems to me that our public finances curve almost entirely depends on keeping immigration at this level. And if we reduce it, partly because we don't educate immigrants and they quite often go home afterwards, if we reduce it, we'll be in bigger trouble. Is there any of that analysis that is wrong in your view?
Well, I think it first of all presupposes that you absolutely need vast numbers of people to come here regardless of their skills. And I don't agree with that. I spent 6 years at the Department for Work and Pensions and looking at the back end of a recession and going forward, trying to get more people into work. The truth is, we still have a significant number of people in the UK who can work and can do many of these jobs. And it is frustrating for them, because one of the problems you've got is that some of the people in the lowest level of income area, they're the ones who probably suffer most from some of this competition. I remember during the time when the Olympic Park was going up, I'm an East London MP, and I remember talking to people in the job centre when I went there, a couple of guys that I met who were skilled people. One was a carpenter, the other one was an electrician. And I said, look, you've got the Olympic Park there, what's the problem? Surely you should be able to, we should get you a shot there. And they said, no, we've gone there for interviews, but the trouble is I am undercut by somebody who comes in here, it hasn't got my family costs and my housing costs here. I cannot compete with them because I can't simply work for those kind of wages that are going on at the moment. And the problem is that has an effect on them. So there is an effect. And my point is, as I said earlier on, you'll want migration. What you want is to recognise the skills that are necessary. Where there are skills shortages, it shouldn't just be about the European Union, by the way. There are plenty of really smart, bright, young software engineers in India, for example, that it would be great to have over here in the UK doing work. It's about a balance of where the skills and the requirements. And the idea of things like point system is to get a sense that the people you need to develop the economy and to help work in the UK are the people that you want to have in here, not then have resentment and annoyance and aggression as a result of that. In Greece, suddenly it becomes a really nasty
Let's bring in everyone else. Ayesha,
maybe
start with you. Do you accept immigration runs between 300,000 and 600,000 too many?
I don't think too many, but I think I accept that a lot of people have a discomfort about immigration and that it is not it should be something that we talk about. I mean, I am the daughter of immigrants. I think immigration has been incredibly important for this country. I think it will continue to be very important for this country. Even Migration Watch said that they didn't think Brexit would help massively reduce immigration. And the question I always find difficult from, I suppose, the Brexit side and from the Conservatives sometimes is about immigration is why have we cut so many staff from the Borders Agency? You know, if we do want to sort of look after our immigration and we do want to sort of trap people coming in.
That's a separate point, though. I was just asking about the numbers coming and whether you feel uncomfortable, whether you think it's too many, whether you want to have, you know, the biggest question for an awful lot of people entering this vote, one of the reasons I keep saying is it gets less clear the closer you get, is that they want to feel that they control immigration. That is the single biggest pull out of Europe.
But I think it's not honest to say to people that you can have a target for immigration, because actually we've tried to have a target for immigration and it doesn't work.
Because we don't control
But we're always going to have a situation where we do need people coming in, we need the skills coming in. We have a lot of people going out in Europe as well. We have lots of British people going to work across the EU as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, I just think also, I personally think it's a sign of desperation by the Brexit campaign that they are focusing on the kind of like, you know, emotional and also slightly dog whistle politics as well. I think it's a sign. It's a sign of a.
Hold on a second.
I think it's a flailing campaign.
Okay, Iain, just answer that, and then I just want to move on to.
Sorry, I just don't accept this. You know, honestly, you can stick your head in the sand and say there's not a problem here. No, wait a minute. You can stick your head in the sand. There's not a problem, and you end up where countries around Europe are right now. My point is that it's not about being anti-migration. It's about saying that we need to be able to control the migration so you assimilate at a level that you can do it.
Okay,
that is the story, and you cannot do that if you don't.
Okay,
you can't do it like that, and that's the whole difference. You will be able to control it. Lots of other countries.
You won't be able to control it outside.
Martin, I just want to bring you in here for a moment. Okay, hold on one second. Martin, I just want to ask you a question. You're in favour of staying in the European Union and all the rest of it. You're a big employer. You must deal with these issues all the time. But what people are looking at the moment is if we stay in Europe, we know that, for example, Albania, we know that Turkey...
What's the unemployment rate in Albania?
I don't know, but Turkey's got 77 million people.
It's about 16%. The other ones that Michael Gove, the other countries that Michael Gove has pointed to, got 20% unemployment, 22%.
But what I'd like to focus...
It's a false analogy.
No, but let me just focus you on the one point that, that a lot of people are thinking about, which is that these countries have applied to join the European Union. People feel that they've had wave after wave of immigration that's been a struggle to assimilate because of the pressure on schools and all the stuff that Iain was just talking about. Do you worry about that at all? Are you perfectly comfortable with the idea of these countries potentially coming in and us dealing with the consequences?
You know, we've talked about emotion. I must admit to being emotionally biased. You know, my grandparents came here from, on my father's side, from the Ukraine in 1899, not speaking a word of English. In fact, my grandparents' marriage certificate had crosses on it for the witnesses, the four witnesses and themselves, because they couldn't speak a word of English. Now, some people, on my mother's side, from Romania and from Poland, between the two world wars. So I'm emotionally involved. And let me just sort of broaden it a bit. I think the economic, there are three buckets here. The economic argument, which I think Iain will disagree, but I think it's quite clear that staying in benefits us. The sovereignty one, I would give him a little bit on that, because I think surrendering sovereignty is an issue. It's not emotional. I think it is, you know, factual. I would prefer to improve our sovereignty within the system. In other words, to be inside the tent, not outside. So that's where I would differ. The immigration issue linked to terrorism is an emotional issue. And I think, just picking up on the point that was made, immigrants have made a major, major contribution. We've seen waves of immigrants before from Eastern Europe, from Germany.
That's not the issue.
I'm
sorry.
Let him finish, and then you finish, Martin, and I want to come to him.
I think it tends to be the immigration tends to be an emotional issue driven by populist movements, whether it be Nigel Farage here or other populist movements, even in America, we see. In the context of the US presidential election, the similar thing. Actually, to be fair, on right and left, but more importantly, probably with Trump in his candidacy.
Can I just kind of bring this over to Emma?
Yes.
Emma, there will be thousands of people watching this programme who will have listened to the things that Michael Gove, for example, and Iain have been talking about. The idea that the EU, if we decide to stay in, that's it. Everyone agrees it's off the agenda for a while. We know that Turkey wants to join. We know that Albania wants to join. Are you bothered about that at all? Do you worry about immigration at all?
No,
do you worry about assimilation?
I don't worry about immigration one jot, because throughout history, every single time people or societies are unhappy with what is going on, they blame immigrants. In 1904, the Conservative government did much what the Brexit campaigners are doing now. They brought in an aliens bill to make political capital out of fears about Irish and Jewish immigrants who were coming over to work. The aim has always been the same. Blame foreigners for all the ills of society, and it's just distraction to let the people who are actually responsible
but let me
off
just ask.
No,
I want to just
because this is what they do.
No, but I want to drill down.
Immigrants mean you can't get housing. No. The fact that successive governments haven't built houses means you can't get housing.
Let Iain come in and answer that.
So here we go. Look, this is ridiculous, the idea that suddenly you're producing the bogeyman. The truth is that no one is saying anything about this being a fault of immigrants. All that we're simply saying is that you need to control migration so that people who are needed can come in and do the jobs. It's not about blaming... It's not about blaming foreigners. No.
If employers
I'm sorry, it's not about blaming foreigners.
This is Iain come back. We've had quite a lot of the counter-arguments.
Emma,
it's not about blaming foreigners. You know, I'm part Japanese, just like everybody else.
Well,
Your grandparents...
Just like President Obama.
Yeah, okay, fine. Hang on a second.
Hold on.
What it leads to is...
Martin, your grandparents...
Let Iain finish. Martin, hold on one second. Let Iain finish.
Your grandparents came in. They
to
came in under a system that was not the EU. It was a controlled migration system, and they still came in. So my point is, we've always had migration. We always will have migration.
Can I ask you one question?
This is not about blaming foreigners.
I understand that. Okay, can I ask you one question? Because, again, it's a...
But you ducked it.
Hold on a second, Martin. Hold on one second.
BBC interview this morning,
hold on a second. We'll get to it in a minute.
You didn't say it was wrong for Boris to call President Obama what he called
Martin, I'll come back to you in 1 second.
You ducked it.
Okay,
didn't call him
Scott, I want to ask Iain a question. We go around the houses on this so many times, and the thing that I want to just be clear about is, are you certain that at the end of it, we leave, let's say, that we vote to go, and then we have a long negotiation process or a short negotiation process. At the end of it, most people think the French and the Germans would ideally like us to sign up to freedom of movement as the price of the trade deal. Are you confident that we will get a document that does not have freedom of movement in the end? And if we don't, would you be happy to pay the price of actually controlling our borders, even if it meant a lesser trade deal?
I actually believe that we'll be able to get a proper deal that allows us control migration. I also think the European Union will at the time, and are beginning to, look again at the whole idea of this complete blanket freedom of movement. The original treaty that we joined was about freedom of labour to take jobs. It wasn't just carte blanche freedom of movement.
Okay.
And this has been the big problem. It changed. You know, the thing that we signed up to and we voted for was different, fundamentally different.
And if it
moved
was
now
the price
to the ability
of,
to come to a country
and
then spend time looking for work rather than coming to do work.
And if it was the price
difference.
if it was the price of a deal, would you say, look, rather go back to a lesser system of, you know, standard tariffs?
Well, I don't think it is like that. I don't think it's the price of a deal.
But if it was, it could be.
No, I think controlling your borders is very important for the settled order in society, and also to make sure that the people you need come to
The most important thing from which everything else flows?
It's amongst a range of issues. It's very important. It's one of the most important ones.
Okay, Martin, let's bring you back in.
Well, in relation to what? I think I said my piece.
You said your piece.
It leads to racial comments. It's the sort we've just seen it in the last week.
And
just seen it in the last week.
I would like to pick up on that.
Sorry, just the leader, or one of the leaders of the out movement, making an outrageous comment like that, a racist comment like that.
Well, he would say it's not. He would say it's not racist. He would say
he knew what he was saying.
I think you're deliberately making something out of something.
I'm not deliberately.
Yes,
when you were asked by John Hargreaves on this morning's programme, you wouldn't
to go around charging
quite
people
rightly,
with racism is a
no,
very
no.
serious
Well,
thing.
then it's
he is
serious.
not doing that, and I'm certainly.
Then it's
Do you stand by? You
fight
said you thought his remarks this morning were a bit clumsy.
They were clumsy.
Do you think,
what he was
on
trying
balance,
to do,
he regrets saying?
Well, I'm sure he does, but the fact was, it was not aimed at a racist comment. I don't
then you
believe
should apologise.
he's not racist, and
Ayesha,
he is fought against racism.
I mean, I have to say, I was just absolutely embarrassed by Boris Johnson's behaviour with Barack Obama. To call him, like, this is the President of the United States, to call him Park Kenyan, he then sort of had to go in for saying he hadn't paid the congestion charge. I was thinking, is he going to turn up and try and make a citizen's arrest or
Lots of
something?
people who are trying to... We need to finish here, so let's make this the last point. But lots of people who are in Iain's position, who are trying to make these arguments, are incredibly frustrated that the President of the United States came over here and told us what to do, possibly in things that he wouldn't
Sure. Well, they've got
home.
Marie Le Pen coming over to say that we should get out of Europe, so it can't be sort of, you know, one rule for somebody and one rule for the other.
The Home Secretary's refused to do it.
Well, you know, she's coming over and lots
So
of
you,
regs.
you,
lots
you,
of-
won't do it,
you
apparently.
definitely want her banned.
Well, I want her banned. I don't want her over because I
And
think
why
she'll
won't she
just,
do it?
Because I think she'll toxify the debate.
But
That's
why
I
won't
don't want to
Theresa
hear.
ban her?
Well, you,
She
you've
can't
al-
ban her
you've
because under
already
the European
toxified
Union
the
rules,
debate
she
yourself.
won't have it. You know, so
Okay,
that's the.
we,
that's
it's,
the end of it.
this
She says she
debate
can't
gets
do it.
okay. This debate gets a little bit more heated every week, and there's still 58 days to go.
I've been getting away with it.